Welcome to paradise. A place where palm trees sway, offshore banks flourish, and secrets drown in turquoise waters. This is where a Texan billionaire built his empire. A man once knighted by a grateful Caribbean nation. A man who called himself a banker, but ran one of the biggest frauds in American history. If you're into the dark underbelly of power, fraud, and financial crime, this one's for you. This isn't just another Ponzi scheme. This is Allen Stanford, the man who built a fake empire with a silver tongue and left 21,000 victims in his wake. So before we crack open the lies, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the Ledger, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. Allen Stanford. The second largest Ponzi schemer in U.S. history. A man who fooled regulators, seduced governments, and left over 21,000 victims in his wake. If Bernie Madoff was the cold, calculated Wall Street type, Stanford was his flashier southern cousin. All charm, cricket, and charisma, but this is not just the story of a fraudster. This is the story of a systemic failure. Of how an entire financial system looked the other way, while billions vanished. Stanford's rise was built on one thing: trust. He offered what everyone wanted but couldn't find: stability, secrecy, and 7% annual returns. Rain or shine. While Wall Street trembled, Stanford International Bank appeared to thrive. He wasn't just selling certificates of deposit. He was selling a fantasy. One backed by slick brochures, flashy cricket tournaments, and the illusion of untouchable wealth. But behind the mahogany desks and offshore glamour was an old game: robbing Peter to pay Paul. Only this time, Peter and Paul were retirees, teachers, and working-class families across the globe. Over 2 decades, Stanford raised $7 billion from unsuspecting investors. But by 2009, the walls were closing in. The SEC received complaints for years. But action? That took a financial apocalypse. When the financial system crumbled, so did Stanford's carefully crafted illusion. It wasn't regulators or journalists who cracked the case, it was chaos. Other crooks dragging down the system with them. February 2009. A Florida prosecutor arrests Laura Pendergast Holt, Stanford's top finance officer, on a minor charge. It was a pressure play, and it worked. James Davis, Stanford's CFO, saw the writing on the wall. He flipped fast. His confession: damning. Stanford International Bank was a Ponzi scheme from day one. False reports. Phony audits. Lies dressed up as wealth. February 17, 2009. The illusion ends. Stanford is caught hiding out in Virginia. Still clinging to the fantasy, he calls the accusations a big misunderstanding. Even as the SEC freezes his accounts and raids his offices, investors panic. Some cry. Others scream. They want answers. They want their money. All they get is silence. Inside, Stanford faces a different reality. He gets beaten brutally in prison. No country club sentence here, just concrete, steel, and regret. In 2012, Stanford goes on trial. 7 weeks of evidence. Mountains of documents. Victims in tears. Stanford shows no remorse. No apologies. Just vague claims of innocence. Verdict: guilty. Sentence: 110 years. Justice? Maybe. But for victims, recovery is a cruel joke. 1 cent for every dollar lost. Some died waiting. Jamie invested $1.2 million. He got back $99,000. Now he runs a victims group, fighting for justice that feels more like a ghost. Families shattered. Retirements destroyed. Some victims couldn't afford food, others died from the stress. One woman wrote, "My husband had a heart attack. He couldn't live with the loss." Paul Pelletier left the case in 2011. He never recovered the billions. And it still haunts him. Stanford is 66 now. He'll die behind bars. His name erased from headlines. His victims left in the shadows of Bernie Madoff's media storm. But this was the second largest Ponzi scheme in U.S. history. This isn't just about Stanford. It's about the American financial system. A system that let him thrive. That celebrated his money, ignored his red flags, and left the little guys bleeding. When charm, power, and money collide, justice moves slow, if at all. True to form, Stanford's still writing his own myth. From a prison cell. A 300-page plea of innocence. A book, ghostwritten by another inmate, calls him a broken man. Maybe he is. But not nearly as broken as the thousands he left behind. Allen Stanford may be rotting in prison, but his victims are still paying the price. And the system that let it happen? Still broken. If you found this story as wild and infuriating as we did, help us keep telling the ones that matter. Drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the Ledger. We dig deep so you don't have to. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical. For the victims. For the truth.